Hi.
Hello, lovely. So nice to see you. Um,
Likewise.
so, the reason for me wanting to have this raw, real, unscripted chat with you was that when I met you, your your experience and your story has stayed in my heart, and I wanted you to be a source of, I guess, inspiration and possibility for other people that might be thinking, what's firewalking about? And so, with your permission, we're going to delve into it, lovely Deepa. So, just taking us back to when we first met, can you just set the scene of um, of that day or the period?
So it's day one at the firewalk training. Very exciting, very empowering, very pumped, right? And we're learning to build a fire. We're doing activities, a lot of camaraderie, and I have to say the environment and the energy was phenomenal. But when time came to lighting the fire, all of a sudden, that huge flame took me back to when I was a little girl and I saw my parents on fire. So, in that moment, that massive fireball felt like my parents were engulfed in there.
Wow, what had
And
happened? What to share what had happened?
we have to backtrack to when I was 7.
Yeah.
I was in, I, I grew up in New York. My family's from Afghanistan. I was 10 months old when they moved. Um, so all I know is New York. At
Mm.
heart, I'm a New Yorker. But when I was 7, my teacher, my second grade teacher said, "Oh, the principal's office has called you in." And I got scared. Like I didn't do anything wrong. So for a second there, I thought I was in trouble.
Mm.
And when I went in, the principal and the vice principal both were there. And I was like, they sat me down and they're like, your parents got into an accident. They're at the hospital. They're okay. But they themselves, like, I just remember them not having the words, them being a bit shocked.
Mm.
So they decided to put the news on. And on the news, I can see my parents in flames. And they owned a bagel, donut, coffee cart, and they were in front of the biggest courthouse in downtown Manhattan.
Mm.
And I mean, the line to their cart was massive all the time.
Mm.
And the cylinder started to make noise. And when the cylinder started to make noise, my mom told my dad, like, take a look at it. And when my dad got closer to turn it off, it blew up. And so my dad, his face caught on fire, but he jumped out.
Mm.
So his upper body is all on fire. My mom's stuck in there. So her whole body's on fire.
Oh.
And at that time, all I can see is my parents on fire.
Mm.
My dad's sister's husband came to pick me up. So I was staying with them. My brothers were allowed to see my parents because they were a little bit older. Um, but because I was so young, I wasn't allowed to go into the emergency unit. And my mom, for a good 3, 4 days, they did not know if she was even going to survive. And my dad, because he was between second and third degree burns, they knew he would survive, but they just didn't know how much damage was fully done.
Mm.
So it was hard seeing them on fire. And I always knew I was a little bit scared of fire. Like when there was a birthday cake, I couldn't turn on the match. I couldn't cope with fire being near me.
Yeah.
And just seeing that massive fire the first day shook my core.
And so, I mean, that is just, can never leave your soul, can it? That experience of the principals not being able to find the words, so they thought they'd show you the image. And so then you turn up to your firewalking instructor training course. The first night, I'm not part of the first night, I'm a guest trainer on that course. And the first night is kind of a very upbeat firewalk, isn't it? And it's very action orientated. There's music playing, you've built the fire. And then could you walk over it? Were you just kind of stuck in that, going back to the 7-year-old version of you, seeing this fire and connecting it with your parents?
Well, it started to, I started to shut down.
Mm.
Like everyone's having a good time. I'm like smiling, but more in shock.
Mm.
And obviously, we don't know each other. The environment is great. We're all getting to know each other, but I wasn't ready to disclose what's happening. Like, I chose to be here,
Mm.
and now this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
How do I express myself? How do I cope? How do I run away? How do I get over this? And so they encouraged us to put your hands on your hips and stand up tall and do the Wonder Woman stance. There was nothing, I felt nothing wondrous. I just felt like a 7-year-old who wanted to cry because I felt the same shock when I saw my parents on TV.
So it anchored you right back, and live in that moment, you are replaying all this chemistry, all this programming that's just come to the surface, and it's happening now. You're reliving this experience now. And so therefore you
I
kind
did.
of stayed in that space but didn't walk over the fire. And then the next day in the sharing circle, I remember you sharing your story. And that night, I was leading my signature firewalk, which is a
Yeah.
heart-led firewalk. And I remember hearing you share your story whilst you are crying and still processing these emotions, as though it's just happened again to you, as though the 7-year-old version of you is reliving something. And I remember feeling this responsibility for, I've got one chance with you. I have one chance to free you from whatever this was. I didn't have names for it. I've got one chance to create a connection with you where you claim your power back. And but when I was listening to your story and feeling into it, there wasn't a dry eye in the room of people thinking, wow, that's what you were going through last night, as we're all joyfully going over the fire. And everybody was having that experience of a lifetime. Meanwhile, your whole system is shutting down whilst stuff coming up, which I find incredible that you stayed and that you didn't run. I mean, that is the real strength of your spirit, and you holding on to, I know I'm here for a reason. So then we come to my particular style of firewalk. What was your experience of that? Because when I was building your fire, I had everybody in mind, but I knew but it was, for me, I really thought I owe it to you to do the best I can to help you free yourself. So all of the space I built with so much intention, the fire, I just allowed my heart to keep building the fire. So when you show up for that evening, take me through what the experience was for you, that internal process, and therefore your physical experience.
There was one side of me. It's like, I signed up for this. I'm going to give it another go. I want to do this. I know there's, I guess, a sense of liberation on the other end.
Oh, yeah.
But then that 7-year-old girl just kept coming up,
Yeah.
and she's hysterical. She was, there's fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm.
And she was frozen.
Mm.
And she just came to life. And when you didn't let us see what you were doing initially. And it's like, I felt drawn to the fire. I
Mm.
felt drawn to the log. I felt drawn to the perimeter that you created. I wanted to be inside. And finally, when you were ready to bring us out and unveil the log, immediately it felt like, I hope that I'm able to get closer to the fire. I didn't even want to put that expectation that I'm going to walk over the fire. If I can sort of connect with the fire, because day one, it was like, get that thing away from me. If I was able to run, I would have run, but I froze again, like the 7-year-old in me. And so when you asked us to write down the words that you're feeling on the log, when you asked us to put the newspaper in the logs and set intentions, and there was this release coming through me. And there were certain parts where I was barefoot, and I felt like my root chakra was connecting to the earth. Then I started crying. I felt like my sacral chakra, my desires, my joy was opening up. And then when you finally lit the fire, it felt like the fire was calling me. The warmth on my face was comforting me. And I was digesting that fear of that inner child within me. And it's like, I hope I can have that connection with the fire, because I felt like it was telling me, I'm here. We're no different. I'm within you. You're within me. And there's that oneness. And then the wind was blowing a little bit. So then I traveled up to my heart, and I was connecting with all the elements that we consist of internally and externally. And then finally, it was time to walk over the fire. And there was this dance within me. You could do it. You can't do it. You can do it. You can't do it. And the fire is just like calling me, like, just come, give me a chance. It felt like the fire's like, just give me a chance. And I just scurried over the fire, and it was, oh my God, beyond liberating, beyond liberating. I can't thank you enough for coming into my life.
What a journey, darling, because that the connection you built with the fire, that you stepped into, was you did all of the work. I set the scene with an open heart, and the log that you put on the fire, that was you putting you on the fire. And in that moment, you chose to free yourself, and the choice to go over and claim a new relationship with the fire, therefore with your inner fire, and therefore with the way that you now dance and play in your life, because you run your own business, don't you? You run your own yoga business. And how has it changed for you in your real life? So we do the fire walk, and it's in a moment, and it's very sacred, and it's very honoring and respectful and fueled with grace, and that's in the moment. And then, but how does that affect what we call real life? What's been the difference for you before and after?
In real life, I think as a person, I believe I'm a very giving, very nurturing person. But as a nurturer, you get a little bit stepped over. There was no concept of boundaries in my life. Um, my house till this day is a revolving door. But since that firewalk, since my experience with you, I've been able to grow my business to a whole new level, as in I have a subscription program. I have over 100 members in my membership, um, who do yoga with me, who practice yoga with me. I do massive well-being events. Um, and I've aligned with people who understand my vision of well-being and taking well-being to a whole new level that's not just power driven, money driven, it's actually service driven.
Mm.
And that experience I had with you, like you just showed up. You did what you had to do. You had me at the forefront of your mind. What comes of it, you have no idea. Will Deepa walk over the fire? You have no idea. But you showed up 100%. And that very intention I take into my day to day, be it with my children, be it with my partner, be it with my business, be it with anyone who practices yoga with me. I'm showing up 100%.
Mm.
What comes of it? I don't know. I don't care. It's just more of an abundance mindset.
I mean, what a gift to the world you are, because I feel like, and I'm sure people that are watching you right now can feel it as well, that like your inner fire is dancing, and that's what you bring, you know, that's what you can wholeheartedly say. When I show up in my classes, when I show up for my members, you're going to get all of me, the inner fire, and if you want to light your torch from mine, you can. But I can really feel that energy from you. And so what we were talking about earlier in our fascinating conversation, that led to this, was about how belief systems are set up, you know, from our experiences when we're young. And that belief, that ambition, I mean, to move to New York and set up a business that your parents did is so ambitious and so powerful. But then for them to have that awful accident, that there was a belief system that possibly had been set up in you that ambition was dangerous. And um, and so that plays out in our lives on a really unconscious level, that we kind of dare to be successful to a level, but then our unconscious mind will hold us back a bit, because don't want you to risk your life, because that had been the patterning from childhood. And now since the your empowerment firewalk, the firewalk that ignited you, has that belief, ambition is dangerous, gone, reframed? What's happened to that old belief?
It's definitely shifted because I did not see the power within me. And the very little power that I did see within me, again, I only played small. I only tried to stay in the safe zone, in my comfort zone. And to me, it's still a shocker as to how I ended up on the firewalk training, how our paths crossed. It's all a mystery. But definitely my belief system shifted. And as an individual, as a businesswoman, I never saw myself as a businesswoman. I thrived since.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, again, I can't say it enough. That is entirely you that's done all of that. You saw you saw your moment, and you took it. And also the other brilliant lesson that you share right at the beginning is about, and the first firewalk evening, it wasn't a fit for you. It wasn't that the firewalk wasn't great, it just wasn't your one. It just wasn't, you just weren't aligned with it. So you stayed back, you stayed true to yourself, and did what was right for you, completely right for you. So to walk over that fire, you could have burnt your feet. So following that inner instinct was so powerful, which is what firewalking is all about. What's right for me in this moment? And then knowing when it was right for you, like that knowledge, that inner compass, that instinct, that knowing, and then following that is just so powerful. And then you got out of it. Everything that you've just described is as a result of you doing that inner work with the exercises that we did in advance, which is all about intention and connection. Because when we're disconnected, that's where injury happens, isn't it? Where, like, I'm not aligned with this, it doesn't feel a fit, there's a gap between where I am and where that is. And it's good not to take those steps. And then it's also, you know, when you have fueled the action you're going to do with intention, with meaning, with purpose, that's where you create the connection. And that's where the flow is, where the power is. And for you to identify that doesn't feel right and this does feel right with whatever it is in life, is where we end up taking the opportunities that lead to our greatest fulfillments, our greatest impacts that we can make, our greatest abundance and enjoyment, and knowing what doesn't feel a fit and just letting that go is as valuable as knowing what is a fit. And I think your intuition has been remarkable, but the whole time, and then to hear how you're seeing the results play out in your life afterwards is just so powerful. Do you ever feel like, oh, I can't believe that I am being this successful, and that, like, it's like you have to have a reality check, or do you feel like, yeah, I'm in total flow, this is exactly where I should be and what I should be doing?
The latter. I'm
That's
in flow.
amazing.
This is, I should have been here all along.
Wow.
And the first night of the fire walk, I can feel the 7-year-old Deepa gripping onto my hand, begging me, don't do this, begging me, do not do this. And I had to honor her, because when the second night, when I did cross over, a part of me leaped at her and hugged her and said, we are okay, we are fine, we did this. So it was honoring her, holding that space for her.
What a lovely, lovely journey and story. But what I've got to ask, that I probably should have asked 5 minutes ago, is how's your mum and dad?
Oh, bless. They are great.
How did they recover from that?
It took a long time, like till this day, like my mom, she's a homemaker. You walk through her doors, no matter who you are, her child or some stranger, you're gonna get fed. So if she accidentally gets a little bit too close to the heat, her arm like burns. Like, what if I touch the fire, I won't get as burned as she would just by being near the fire. So her tissues are very, very damaged inside. But her face, if you see her face, it's like nothing ever happened, but you can see scars on her arms, her abdomen. You can see she's been burned. My dad's made a very good recovery. There might be slight faint marks that you could see on his hands, but nowhere else. They're doing well. My dad's just written a book. He launched it a couple weeks ago, November 8th.
Wow.
About his journey being an Afghani Sikh, moving from Afghanistan, living in India, moving to the States, his journey. So yeah, it's, he's in his 70s. He's doing really well. He's really active. And my mom keeps up with him. He keeps up with her. They're living their best life.
Amazing, amazing. And what did your mum and dad have a perspective of seeing what they needed to learn as a result of the fire, or were they just much more action orientated about getting on with it?
No, it's very different for them. I feel like I have done some, and I may need to continue to do some work on their behalf when
Mm,
it comes to healing.
mm.
Um, it's more like we went through this, there was a blip in our journey, and that's it, move on. There's no time to nurture your emotions and your feelings. And it's just, yep, it happened. That's it. We're
Yeah,
fine. We're here.
it's a different generation and a different mindset, isn't it? Of that kind of mindset of you fall down, you dust yourself off, you get on with it, you don't feel sorry for yourself. There's no time for that. We've got children to raise, we've got a business to run, we've got money to make to keep a roof over our head. There's no time for reflection, and I get that. But I love the way that you just said there's that you would like to do that on their behalf as well, because for you as well. Um, yeah, how lovely. And what one nugget of wisdom do you think that experience that you've had with the fire and the fire walk, if you could put it into a sentence of wisdom that has stuck with you, what would that be?
It would be to honor your inner child, honor your intuition. We all have this gut. And if I've ever relied on it the most, it was during that fire walk.
Mm,
My gut told me day one, no,
mm,
don't even think about it.
mm,
Day two, my gut said, you're doing this.
mm.
So I don't know how wisdomous that was, but it boils down to your intuition. Honor it. It's always communicating with us, and the right people will show up to
Mm.
help you, to guide you. And I feel like I I, I don't have words to thank you. I don't know how my life would have unfolded had you not come in.
You absolutely pierced my heart and stayed in it, darling. You really did, because you're a true inspiration. You're an absolute inspiration, which is why I want to share this conversation with people whose inner fire is subdued for whatever reason, and it might not be as big as yours experience, or as black and white as your experience, but there's some subdue in their inner fire that is uh, making their life be less vibrant as they'd like it to be. And hopefully, listening to you, uh, they will feel a connection that they dare to fan those inner flames and play a bit brighter, bit
Yes.
brighter in the world, and come on a fire walk that can, in a very sacred way, release their restrictions. And so um, thank you so much for sharing so beautifully and articulately your journey, and you're a blessing, my love, total blessing.
When I think about walking over the fire and the way you stood there, encouraging me, holding me, energetically holding me, it's like you, yes, I did the work, but you gave me the key to take the shackles off
Mm,
because I put them on myself.
mm, mm,
And
mm.
this is how, I think everyone should experience a Lisa fire.
You know, that's so lovely to hear you say that. My mentor, Peggy Dillon, uh, I just have had the most incredible, impeccable training. And the training is never really about the action steps of walking on fire. It's about, I guess, what I felt myself doing that she would do for me is holding you in your potential without any force or any push, but just holding the belief that you will do exactly what's right for you. And that's what empowerment is, really. It's not me saying, right, come on, Deepa, you'll go, you can do it, off you go. Brilliant, you've done it once, get off, sit down, celebrate. It's about me just holding the space as you step into your power and you move with it. And I remember when you walked over, my whole heart felt so joyful for you, because I knew you'd be forever unlocked. You'd be forever free. And that moving forward, before you even put your feet on the fire, was where the work was done. It was that decision. Now I'm taking the opportunity now. And just to be there to witness it was one of my greatest firewalking moments. It really was. And I'm sure there are lots of people that would totally understand the courage that, having heard your story now, the courage that it took to move from where you were standing to the beginning of the coals was the biggest journey. That inside journey, the walking over the fire, was just, you were already in movement by then, but the decision to know what feels good and to follow it and trust yourself and the space is so inspiring, my lovely. Now, I would love to share your website with people, so if they're feeling drawn to your energy and your particular energy and light, and they want to know more about your yoga. It is yoga, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm so in the fire energy. Yoga, then those people have a way of finding you. So we'll put that in the link. And thank you, darling. Let's catch up again soon. I want to hear what the next chapter of your life is. And you've been a total blessing. Thank you so much.
So grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you, lovely.